Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examination. Today we have picked up a couple of important articles which are very significant from your GS paper 1, GS paper 2 and GS 3 perspective. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says 8 former Navy officers get death penalty in Qatar. The article here is important from your GS paper 2, which is international relations. First, we will try and understand what is this article all about, what is the context, why these Navy officers who were previously part of Indian Navy got death penalty in Qatar, and we will also look at India and Qatar relations in a broader detail. First, we have to understand the context. 8 former Indian Navy personnel who had been employed by a company in Doha were handed death penalty by a local court in Doha. What is this article speaking about? We have about 8 former Indian Navy officers. These former Indian Navy officers who were present in Qatar were working for one of the local companies in Qatar, and these people have now been imposed by death penalty by the court of the first order in Qatar, which is what this article speaks about. So first important factor that we have to understand is, where is Qatar? Qatar happens to be one of the countries in West Asia, and do note, whenever you are speaking about a country, you have to know its location, you also have to know its capital and arrangement from east to west and north to south. Why? Because UPSC in the past and KPSC exams in the past have asked questions of arrangement of places or capitals or places which are in use either from east to west or from west to east, north to south or from south to north. So where do we have Qatar? Qatar happens to be a region in the Western Asian region and its capital happens to be Doha. So it is at this particular point that we have. So there might be a question, arrange the following from west to the east. So you have Riyadh, then you also have Doha, then you have Muscat. So if they ask you a question, arrange from west to east, you should know that Riyadh comes first, followed by Doha and then Muscat, and then you also have Amman at the extreme west. So we have this arrangement from the west to east. If they are asking you an arrangement from east to west, what you will have is Muscat, followed by Doha, followed by Riyadh as well as Amman. These are the kind of questions that you can anticipate. Or there can be another question, arrange them from the north to south, which can be Tbilisi, then you have Baku, then you have Tehran, then you have Baghdad, so on and so forth. North to south and south to north arrangement is also the need of the hour. Now, if we have to speak about Qatar, India and Qatar have good relationship as well. But what is the issue right now? We have these former Indian Navy officers who were employed by one of the defense services organization where in Qatar. The men were working for a defense service provider organization called as Dahra Global Technologies and Consultancy Services, which are owned by a retired member of the Royal Omani Air Force. When you look at the website of this particular company, there are 2 websites. One, the website which was created much prior to the arrest of these individuals, and the website was also recreated after the arrest of the persons. So the arrest becomes one of the key factor. Much prior to it, there was a different layout and a different website, and after the arrest of these individuals as well as this person who was running the organization and the company, the website gets a revamp. So according to the old website, it says that it is a company which was provided training, logistics and maintenance services to the Qatari Emiri Naval Force. So this company where these 8 individuals, former Indian Navy individuals were employed, were primarily providing training, logistics and maintenance services to the Qatari Emiri Naval Force. And now we have the State Security Bureau, which happens to be the Qatari intelligence agency. They arrest the owner or the proprietor of this organization, the company, along with 8 Indian former nationals. So spying for Israel on Qatar's advanced submarines, which have stealth capabilities that make them hard to detect, was one of the key allegations as to why they were arrested. So they were arrested on the espionage charges. So this particular company was developing submarines. These submarines were able to evade the radar. So what is the advantage of a submarine? If it is able to evade the radar, then it means it will be able to conduct its sabotaging activities. It will be able to hit the enemy as well. So Israel forces were trying to target Qatar forces, and Qatar did not have good relationship with Israel as well. So these companies were coming up with a submarine which was in advanced stage in such a way that this particular submarine, when constructed and when employed, the radar would not detect these submarines, and this particular technology was being developed by this company along with the Italy company. So as per this particular initial information that we have, this information that was being developed, this particular equipment that was being developed, its information was being given by this company to the Israeli forces. We do not know, because this is just an assumption and a presumption. So they have been booked under the espionage charges, and there have been no charges. Nothing has been told to these people, but it is an assumption. Why? Because these people were put under the solitary confinement. Whenever a person is put under solitary confinement in Qatar, it is mostly related to security related apparatus. So only when a person is put under solitary confinement, it is mostly related to espionage or related to security related issues, and that is why they were arrested, and it went before the court, and the court of the first order has imposed death penalty to these individuals. Why? Because they were booked under espionage charges. Why? That is because they were developing these submarines which could have evaded the radar, and they have given information about these submarines to the Israel is an allegation, and that is why they have been imposed with death penalty. When asked before the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of External Affairs said that they will do all that it takes to ensure that these Indian nationals are completely outside. So they will be acquitted. So they are working all possible ways and means to speak to the Qatari government and ensure that these people are acquitted over a period of time. So what are the possible options that are available with India? One is to pursue legal appeals in the case. As I told you, this happens to be the court of the first order. So what is the first court of the first order? You will have the trial court, then you will also have the high court, then you ultimately will have the Supreme Court. So similarly, in the Qatar court, what you have is the first court order which has been passed. So India can go for an appeal, and it can also provide all the legal assistance, or this can be resolved diplomatically as well, that we have the highest office, Ministry of External Affairs gets involved. Its personnel will start speaking to the personnel of the Qatar External Affairs Ministry, and they ultimately settle things so that these former Navy officers are ultimately released as well. Then we have political intervention at the Prime Minister's level to request a pardon. So we can have the Prime Minister of our country speak to the highest office of that particular country and ultimately request that these people also be pardoned as well. We have pardon in our Indian Constitution under Article 72 of the Indian Constitution, where the President has the pardoning powers. Similar such powers are also present with the highest officers of Qatar. So the Prime Minister of India can make a request to the highest officers of Qatar and ultimately request to the pardon of these 8 former Indian Navy officers, or build an international campaign to appeal for clemency. These are the possible options that we have. It is in this particular backdrop we also have to understand the relationship between India and Qatar. When we speak about India and Qatar relationship, the two countries have had friendly relationship for decades. Since Prime Minister Manmohan Singh visit to Qatar in November 2008, the first by an Indian Prime Minister, the relationship has burgeoned. The Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Ahmad Al Thani, visited India in 2015, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Qatar in 2016. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has visited the country on at least 3 major occasions, and the late Sushma Swaraj ji became the first Indian Foreign Minister to visit Qatar in 2018 as well. So we have had highest level connections between India as well as Qatar. Now if you look into the relationship per se, this can be broadly broken down into economic relationship as well as defense relationship. In 2021, India was among the top 4 export destinations for Qatar. It is also among the top 3 sources of Qatar's imports as well. The bilateral trade is valued at $15 billion, which is mostly LNG and LPG exports from Qatar. And Qatar is the largest supplier of LNG to India, accounting for over 50% of India's global LNG reports. So we've also had good economic relationship with them, and in fact the balance of trade has tilted towards Qatar. So more exports are made from Qatar in comparison to Indian exports to Qatar. India also regularly participates in the biennial Doha International Maritime Defence Exhibition and Conference, which is about the defence relationship. Indian naval and coastal guard ships regularly visit Qatar as part of the bilateral cooperation and interaction. We visit their ports, they come to our ports as well, and 2 editions of joint naval exercise called as Zai al-Bahr has also been held. So remember, from the preliminary examination point of view, Zai al-Bahr happens to be a naval exercise between India as well as Qatar. Since we have had good economic relationship, we have had defense relationship as well, and we have more than 8 lakh people from India who have been working in Qatar as well. India also has one of the largest diaspora in Qatar, and it happens to be one of the largest communities of international order in Qatar as well. Such has been the development between India and Qatar. So in this particular backdrop, we've had good relationship in the past. We continue to have good relationship with Qatar as well, but in an unfortunate incident, what we now have is charges are not told to these people. We are assuming that it is an espionage charge, but what exactly is the charge, why have they been arrested, is yet not revealed by these Qatar agencies. So the Indian government should take, and it will take, all legal measures to ensure that these former Navy officers are ultimately released or they are given the pardon. So we have to wait and watch what are the legal options that the Indian government will explore to make sure that these people are ultimately released. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, what does the abortion verdict mean for the reproductive justice? Let us try and understand what is this article all about. Immediately after a person becomes pregnant, a woman becomes pregnant and she gives birth to a baby, a person goes through some physical and mental changes. A woman goes through a physical changes because her body goes through physical and hormonal changes, and at the same time she also goes through some mental changes as well immediately after pregnancy. Following days to weeks after childbirth, most women experience some kind of mental disturbance like mood swings and mild depression. This is also called as the post-baby blues. She goes through some physical and hormonal changes. That is because of the lack of sleep. Her body would not have got used to it. So she starts assuming few things. She enters into the mode of hallucination as well. She has exhaustion as well. She becomes very tired because she would not face this particular part of a woman where a lot of hormonal changes goes through. So the minute she has given birth to the child, there are physical changes and mental changes and psychological changes that a woman goes through, and such a change that she has is what is called as the postpartum psychosis. So what is this postpartum psychosis? This is the severest form of mental issue or mental illness, whereby it is characterized by extreme mood swings, confusion, loss of touch with the reality, there is paranoia, there is delusion, and ultimately disorganized thought process and hallucinations. So what is postpartum psychosis? It is after childbirth that a person goes through certain mood swings, delusion, hallucination, so on and so forth, which is what is called as postpartum psychosis. So in this particular instance, what we have is a woman. This woman happens to be 26 weeks pregnant. She is married and she also has 2 children, and was dealing with postpartum psychosis. So under this particular case, what exactly happens? So there is a woman who was suffering with postpartum psychosis. So she basically says, she goes to the Supreme Court of India. She says when she had the second childbirth, she witnessed this postpartum psychosis and she ultimately may face similar such issues if she gives birth to the third one. So she goes before the Honorable Court and she says that she wants to abort the fetus. She does not want to give birth to this particular fetus. Why? Because in her second pregnancy, she faced postpartum psychosis, and for the third pregnancy, and if case there is childbirth, it can result in postpartum psychosis, and ultimately it could result to her mental trauma, mental disorder, mental well-being being disturbed, and she goes before the Honorable Court, requests the Honorable Court permission to abort this fetus. But the Honorable Court in this particular case does not accept her condition. This is where the author goes on to speak about the previous judgments that have been passed by the Supreme Court of India and the present situation and arguments given by the government and accepted by the Supreme Court of India and the way forward with respect to the abortion rights in our country. We have one of the landmark judgments delivered by the Supreme Court of India in X versus NCT. At this particular judgment, the Supreme Court went on to say, at the level of constitutional principle, they have tended to see the right as vesting solely with the women. What does this mean? Whenever a woman becomes pregnant, there is fetus. There is a life that is growing in that particular woman, which means that there is a new life that this person will be giving to. But whenever a person is not happy, or she is suffering from a mental trauma, or it is an aspect of rape where the person has not given consent to it, but then there is a fetus within the woman's body, in all these cases, it is the woman who has to take care of this particular fetus and the child after she gives birth to the child. But in this case, the woman is not ready for it and she does not want to take care the responsibility of this particular fetus and the child. So what shall she do? She goes before the court and ultimately requests for the abortion. So the court in X versus NCT has clearly emphasized, since it is the woman's body, she is the ultimate authority, she is the ultimate person to decide whether she wants to conceive or not. But in this particular case, what exactly happens? In X versus NCT, entire responsibility of aborting a particular fetus as per the law of the land was given to the women. If it is within a prescribed period, the woman would be able to decide whether she wants to abort the fetus or not, subject to the matters as laid out in the law. So what happened in X versus NCT? In X versus NCT, the Supreme Court said, yes, women has the authority. It is her body. It is her authority. She would be able to decide whether she wants to abort the baby or not in X versus NCT. But then the same is not being accepted in the present situation. So what is the argument made in the present situation? The argument is with respect to the viability theory. What is this concept of viability theory that has been proposed by the government, that has been accepted by the Supreme Court in the instant case? So in the instant case, we have something called as the viability theory. What is the viability theory? Let's say, for example, a fetus which is present in the mother's womb will require the assistance of the mother. Let's say, for example, we have the first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, so on and so forth. After 6 months, a baby, that is the fetus, would be able to live independently without the mother's assistance, with the help of the doctors as well as other setup. So after the second trimester, or when the baby is able to live without the assistance of the mother in the outside world, outside the womb, with the medical assistance, is what is called as viability theory. In viability theory, after the second trimester or after 6 months of pregnancy, in that particular period, the fetus would be able to live independently without the mother's assistance, and that is what is called as viability theory. So the fetus is viably able to live outside the womb independently without the assistance of the mother, with the help of the assistance of the doctors, so on and so forth, is what is called as viability theory. It was because of this viability theory in Roe versus Wade in 1973, the Supreme Court of United States of America had also accepted the abortion as well. If the mother is, if the fetus is able to live or not, was the basis of abortion law. So in the present situation, since the fetus had grown to such an extent that this particular fetus, if given birth to, would be able to live independent of the women, and as a result, the Supreme Court did not accept this particular argument made by the women. The Supreme Court said you had ample amount of time, you could have come before us any period even before 20 weeks or much prior to 24 weeks, but now that it is 26 weeks, since the fetus can live independently, we are not giving permission to you to abort the fetus, said the Supreme Court of India. This is where there is a conflict. The conflict is that we have the Supreme Court of India which has not given the permission, but what are the rights of the fetus? Does the fetus have an independent right? This is where we have couple of judgments which are contradictory in nature. The Calcutta High Court in 2019 said that an advanced stage of pregnancy, the right to life of the fetus outweighs the mother's mental trauma. So after a particular period of time when there is viability, when the child can be given birth to, at that particular moment the child's rights, that is the fetus rights which ultimately will become the child, it has its own share of its rights. So at that particular moment a mother cannot say that she is suffering from the mental disorder, mental trauma, and she cannot abort the fetus, says the Calcutta High Court in 2019. A 2016 Bombay High Court decision relied on international human rights law to hold that fetus does not have any rights till the birth. So what we actually see is a contradiction. Calcutta High Court says that right to life is important of the fetus, but then Bombay High Court says that the right of this particular fetus is not exactly a right until it is given birth to. So there is a contradiction in a way that one High Court has analyzed the situation to another High Court. So what we have is a dilemma, a confusion to understand what is the right of the fetus that is yet not deciphered, that is yet not answered by the Supreme Court. So going forward, we need these answers by the Supreme Court. What are the rights of the fetus? Until when it can be given birth to? Can it be aborted? All this has to be answered by the Supreme Court of India, says this article. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about ethics committee. We have what is called as the ethics committee in both the Lok Sabha as well as the Rajya Sabha. First, we will understand what is the history behind establishment of the ethics committee. We will look at the composition of the ethics committee in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and we will also look at how a complaint can be lodged with the ethics committee and what is the procedure in the ethics committee. First, let's look into the history of it. A presiding officers conference was held in 1996, which first mooted the idea of ethics panels for the two houses. Whenever there is a person who is violating certain decorum, certain ethics which is supposed to have been followed by the member of parliament, if it is not done, that is when a person can file a complaint, and this will be referred to the ethics committee. So the ethics panel for the two houses, it was initially mooted back in the year 1996. Then Vice President and Rajya Sabha Chairman K.R. Narayan constituted the ethics committee of the upper house on March 4, 1997, and it was inaugurated that made to oversee the moral and ethical conduct of the members, examine cases of misconduct, refer to it. The rules applicable to the Committee of Privileges are also applicable to the ethics panel. So all those rules that are applicable to the Committee of Privileges. So we have another committee. One is called as the Committee of Privileges. In case the privileges that are accorded to the individual members of the parliament, if they are violating it, it can be referred to the Privileges Committee. So all those rules that are applicable to the Committee of Privileges, the same rules are also applicable to the ethics panel as well. In the case of Lok Sabha, a study group of the House Committee of Privileges, after visiting Australia, UK, US in 1997, took to the practices pertaining to the conduct and the ethics of the legislature, recommended the constitution of ethics committee, but it could not be taken up in the Lok Sabha. The Committee of Privileges finally recommended the constitution of an ethics committee during the 13th Lok Sabha, and the late speaker GMC Balayogi constituted an ad hoc ethics committee in 2000, which became a permanent part of the house in the year 2015. This was how the ethics committee was established. Now let's look into the composition of the ethics committee. The committee consists of 15 members in the Lok Sabha. So remember, in the Lok Sabha we have 15 members. In the Rajya Sabha we have 10 members. The term of the committee is 1 year, which is once again important from your preliminary examination point of view. What does it do? Its function is to examine every complaint relating to unethical conduct of a member of Lok Sabha, refer to it by the speaker, and make such recommendations. So how does it work? Let's say, for example, I am an MP. No, I'm not an MP, I'm just giving you an example. So I am a member of parliament. So I feel that one of the other members members of the parliament has violated certain ethical code of the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. If it is the Lok Sabha, what do? I say that this particular case is not frivolous in nature. I do not have any personal vendetta against this person. All that I am looking is that there is certain decorum that has to be followed in the Lok Sabha, and this person has to upkeep certain ethics as well. In case of misconduct, I feel that there is another member of the parliament who is not maintaining this certain decorum, and at the same time is not upkeeping with the values that have been established. So there is misconduct in this particular case. So what do? I say that this particular case is not frivolous. This is not sub judice. There is no media report, and as a result I file an affidavit and I also give a complaint to the speaker. So the speaker takes this particular affidavit, looks into this particular issue, and ultimately refers the same to the committee. The committee will have two options. One, prima facie it looks into this particular case and it tries to understand, is it sub judice? Sub judice as in, is there any case before another honorable court? If there is a case before the honorable court, it will not look into that particular matter. Or is it only because a media report has been existing? So prima facie it will see if there is a case. If there is no case, it will immediately release it. So no further investigation will take care. However, prima facie it feels that there is a case, that there is a misconduct, that the ethical principles and decorum that have been established by the Lok Sabha has been violated by this particular member. So a report will be made, and this particular report will be sent to the speaker. The speaker will request the members, a discussion will happen, and suitable measures will be taken when it comes to the ethics. So a person will be given a warning. So the person will be asked not to do a certain activity. A person will be asked not to do so and so activity for a consecutive number of days, and if it is of a violative nature, that person can also be suspended for a specific period of time as well. So what will happen in this case? It will function to examine every complaint relating to unethical conduct of a member of Lok Sabha, refer to it by speaker, make such recommendation as it may deem fit, formulate a code of conduct for members, and suggest amendments or additions to the code of conduct from time to time. So once this is done, after a consecutive number of days, they will be giving a code of conduct that has to be practiced. This will be keep on changing over a period of time as per the change and exigencies that are present over a period of time. So this committee on ethics, there is in Lok Sabha, it is also present in Rajya Sabha. So depending on where the MP files is, it will be taken up by the Lok Sabha speaker or by the Rajya Sabha chairman. It will be referred to a committee. The committee makes a recommendation on the basis of which they will impose a code of conduct, or they may also impose certain restrictions to this particular member. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about what is called as the reference fuels. What are these reference fuels? Reference fuels are nothing but the gasoline and diesel. They are the premium high value products. What are they used for? They are used for calibration and testing of vehicles by auto manufacturers and organizations involved in testing and certification in the automotive field. So these reference fuels are nothing but fuels that are used by the automobile manufacturers. Let's say for example, we have Maruti Suzuki, or for example, let's say Mahindra, or for example, let's say Tata. These are used by the manufacturers to test the engine vehicle. So for manufacturers, for developing engines and accessing vehicles performance to ensure operability in all global climatic conditions. Currently, when we speak about these reference fuels, they are being imported by India from select companies of Europe and United States of America. So these reference fuels are being imported by India, but now we have our own Indian Oil Corporation and industries which have developed these reference fuels. So what is the significance? The significance is we will not be importing these reference fuels from some other country and some other company located in some other country, and as a result our import bill reduces over a period of time. We don't have to spend our foreign exchange, and this will also mean that we can always get this fuel from India and it can be reliant on Indian companies. So for decades, India has relied on imports to meet the demand from these specialized fuels, but now Indian Oil Corporation has indigenously developed products that will replace imports, ensuring a reliable supply at much lower cost for vehicle manufacturers and testing agencies. Further, when we look at this Reference fuels, we have to understand that when it comes to fuels, there are two types. One is called as regular and the premium fuel. What is the biggest difference? The biggest difference between normal and premium fuel lies in the octane number. The regular fuel has an octane number of 87. Premium fuel has an octane of 91. So what is the difference here? The octane number in the premium fuel is far in excess in comparison to the normal fuel. The reference grade fuel comes with the 97 octane number. So the octane number is the highest when it comes to reference fuels. When it comes to normal fuels, it is 87. When it comes to premium fuels, it is 91. When it comes to reference fuels, it is 97. So where do we have the maximum octane number? It happens to be in the reference fuels. The octane number is nothing but a unit to measure the ignition quality of the petrol or the diesel. For vehicle testing purposes, the fuel has to be of a higher grade than regular or premium petrol and diesel. The host of specification include C10 number to flash point, viscosity, sulfur, water content, hydrogen purity, acid number. They are all listed under government regulations such as fuels, and such is what is called as reference petrol or diesel. These reference fuels are used for emission testing of vehicles equipped with spark ignition engines. This is what we have to understand with respect to this topic. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about osteoporosis. What is osteoporosis? It occurs when bone density decreases and the body stops producing as much bone as it did before. So this is to do with the bone. What are the symptoms? One, a person will start facing a lot of back pain. Then there is lot of loss of height over a period of time, and then there is bent structure as shown in the picture. Since the bone density decreases, a person will not be able to move liberally as before. The person bends immediately, so he would not have a normal straight structure. That is the significant impact of osteoporosis. So women will be significantly impacted. Men will also be impacted. What are the risk factors? If a person starts consuming a lot of alcohol or engages in smoking related activity, or there is a family history of osteoporosis, that will all create the symptoms. So these are the major risk factors. And what are the diagnosis? DEXA scan, ultrasound, blood or urine samples will be taken, and the treatment includes medication with tablets, and then there is hormone therapy, then there is nutrition for the strong bones, and exercises will have to be taken up by the people as well. What are the prevention? 1. Limit alcohol intake, stop smoking, take calcium and vitamin D supplements, and walk or jog regularly. These are some of the prevention measures. And this image that I have added will also give you the entire picture of osteoporosis. So kindly look into both these images, and both these images speak about the very same issue. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. In case you're liking these videos, please do like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also share it with your fellow aspirants as well. In case you want me to take up any of the topics that you are facing difficult in the Indian polity or in international relations or any other topic, please do put it on the comment section so that I can discuss this topic on our YouTube channel. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.